as College Credit Plus, and boy, did it explode, because our original goal was basically, let's get more students into dual enrollment in Ohio, right? And so from about 2015 to 2016, just in that first year alone, we went from about 30,000 students who participated in dual enrollment, whatever it was called in your region, to about 53,000 and change. Our last annual report that was produced was in what was covering academic 22-23. And you can see that we were over 80,000 students. I can tell you that we are getting ready to release at the end of December. We will be releasing another College Credit Plus annual report, and I think we will see that student participation has jumped over 90,000. So we have significantly increased just in the last 2 years alone, which I think makes it really important for the work that Candace and I are doing. Next slide, Candace. I just wanted to give everybody kind of a general gist. I talk about this data all the time, but just in case it's not familiar to you, in our annual report, we talk about the snapshots in time, right? And we say, okay, at that end of that same academic year, and academic year 22-23, where were we? We know that the bulk of our students are juniors and seniors, right? We know that those outliers of 7th and 8th graders that sometimes make folks nervous only really account for less than 1% of total CCP enrollment. And even when you add in freshmen, we still don't even get to 3% of our student population. So the bulk of the students are juniors and seniors, which makes it really important that we put them on a trajectory, right, that will make them on a good pathway to college. And when we look at what courses the students take within College Credit Plus, I think it shocks none of us who are practitioners in the field, right? Whether we're on secondary or higher ed side, that the bulk of the students are taking general education or general studies courses. Though we are starting to see an uptick in the data of those applying towards baccalaureate degrees, and actually those that are applying towards technical coursework and technical certificates. Go ahead, Candace. So I have been traveling around the state with some of my DEW colleagues over the last 2 years, and I have graciously stolen these things from them, but I give them total credit. But no, we've been talking about always pathways to graduation, right? When we look at high school students and that side of things, we're always talking about getting that student to graduation. But are we really doing something meaningful if we don't get them through graduation, right? So the Venn diagram has always looked like, okay, what can we do really quickly? Based and then circled in with the student interest and aptitude. Is this valuable? Is the kid on a valuable pathway, right? And maybe we'll throw in whether or not that meets regional needs. Next slide, Candace. So then we shifted our focus, right, in the last probably 10 years or so, that said, maybe we should start intersecting these three things together. What does our community need with our students' interest, and whether or not what we're putting them in is valuable to that pathway? And our future state, which is in the next slide, is where we hope all of those things overlap, right? Especially when we look at the intersection of community college work, which is where the bulk of our College Credit Plus courses are happening, is at the community college level. And their charge is to be responsive, right, to their region and their regional needs and the needs of their students and their community. So I think now we are all coming together with this classic case of all the Venn diagram merging together and us focusing on the whole student. And you notice that now the topic is pathways through graduation. That does not stop with high school graduation. It goes all the way through. Within the last biennial budget, not the one that just got signed, but in House Bill 33, which was a biennial budget ago, we actually beefed up some pathways language. I think it will come as a shock to no one that we actually started calling out particular careers, because if COVID taught us one thing, we know that we have shortages in healthcare, right? We've also seen mental health and behavioral health shortage in professions, but you'll see very specific engineering technologies and something essential to the semiconductor industry, right? Nursing, I already mentioned that. Teaching and other related fields, which those of us who've been in education for a long time know that we are desperate for teachers, and the other institution or the other things that I've called out. So we, in this current biennial budget, have continued to beef up that pathways language in this same respect, but we've also, College Credit Plus has been pulled into other things. And you'll see, if you're you're a nerd like me and you want to read the whole budget bill, but you'll see College Credit Plus mentioned as a caveat to how students can get to bachelor's degrees faster, right? How students can get into the workforce faster. We're even mentioned in an AI pilot program, and my charge is to help develop some CCP AI pathways. So that's a stay tuned. Next slide, Candace. So why is that important, right? Well, we know that we have these beautiful things called Ohio Guaranteed Transfer Pathways. And I think we're really spoiled in Ohio, friends, because when I go outside the state and I participate in several dual enrollment things across the nation, and afterwards my colleagues from other states will come up to me and be like, but how do you make that credit count? And I jokingly say, well, I just stick the articulation police on them. But no, I'm not really. But really, there is a robust set of articulation guidelines, right, in the state of Ohio. And I guess we're really spoiled, friends. We're really lucky to have that. And that makes my job really easy because when I steer students towards those guaranteed transfer pathways and those transferable courses, then I can surely make a really good argument if someone pushed back on that credit counting, right? And those days of the wild, wild west and those random acts of dual enrollment hopefully have been nipped in the bud somewhat, because we're focusing on those transferable courses. And at the end of the day, we're teaming up with those OGTPs and teaming up with Candace because far be it from me to stand between a young person and getting a degree faster and getting into a livable wage faster, right? We want something to come out meaningful from this program. I don't want the General Assembly to say they're just taking basket weaving, right? We know that's not allowable these days. But it's very important, I think, for the work of the intersection of these two things. I will stop rambling on and switch to Candace.
Okay. So as Becky said, if you haven't heard about the Ohio Guaranteed Transfer Pathways, these are pathways that are built upon the existing statewide individual course equivalency guarantees that we built over the last 30 years of time. And so we're using those as building blocks to create pathways that offer a program guarantee. These pathways are all faculty driven, meaning that faculty are the ones who develop them. It wasn't me sitting around creating a pathway. This is the faculty, both from our community college and bachelor degree programs, working together to create a pathway that they feel will help students succeed. So students, of course, and student success is all at the center of this. These pathways are intended to offer transparency for programs of study about math as well as other program requirements, information about different academic and career paths that might be confusing, and ensure that credits can not only transfer but apply in ways that help a students move toward degree completion. And they offer guidance for exploring various major areas. So one good example of this that could be confusing is what math do I need to take in certain majors? And so the pathways spell that out. So, if you're going into engineering or computer science, you're going to need calculus. Whereas other areas, such as the humanities, might only require a quantitative reasoning course or statistics for a lot of the social behavioral sciences. We have a special math for people interested in going into teacher education. And so the pathways provide all of these different and very specific requirements that there might be for certain major areas and students who are interested in going into those areas. So I think that helps guide a student's plan of action. So we've created kind of bite-sized versions of the guaranteed transfer pathways. We've taken the pathways that the faculty have developed and identified kind of the first 30 hours of those pathways that work towards an associate degree, but they're also focused obviously on bachelor's degree programs. And so if a student doesn't finish the entire pathway, there's not a problem there, but it at least gives guidance on some of those introductory courses that a student might want to take. And maybe it helps them realize that that is not their area. Also great. But we just want to make sure that they are taking courses that are going to help them. So, 6 social behavioral science courses is fantastic. But if you take those and you're planning on going into engineering, that will not help you to complete your degree any faster. It'll just be additional credit hours that a student has accumulated that aren't going to count towards degree requirements that they are going to need eventually. intended to help guide that. And of course, they aren't set in stone. And if a student, takes courses that are outside of that, doesn't mean that can't get back onto the pathway. But we just tried to provide some very simplistic, clear guidance that offers some recommendations for students. So these are by no means requirements, they're just recommendations. We've included our website here. We have now I think 26 pathways included on there. This is an example. I've included the QR to the website if you want to pull that up as well right now. Hopefully, I think Brittany will drop the link into the chat as well. But you can kind of see what this looks like, just posed as 4 semesters, because as Becky mentioned, mostly juniors and seniors taking College Credit Plus, and just offers the first few courses that would, and we've tried to incorporate courses that are related to the major. Of course, there are a lot of general education courses that need to be taken in the course of a bachelor's degree program, but we're trying to really provide some of the beginning major courses to give a student a flavor of what this major might be like, so that they can kind of determine whether they want to stay in that major or whether they'd like to explore other majors. And then it also provides a little bit of information of definitions and meeting high school graduation requirements as well. So that is kind of our presentation for you. Becky, is there anything else you want to add?
Just to add that as a recovering college access person, that's what I jokingly call myself. But I used to talk to my students all the time, right? I'm sure when you're trying to say, oh, no, you really don't need to take 12 maths, right? If you, as Candace was saying, and that's something that I've heard lately in the field. We always hear kind of the perception of College Credit Plus. And I've heard a lot of the public four-years talk to me lately about, hey, Becky, we're seeing students come in with, 5 and 6 history classes when they want to be a health science major. So I think that these documents that we have up are really helpful and by all means a tool for you to use. And if you noticed on the form that Candace had up on the screen, it also lists the high school graduation requirements. So I think it's a really transparent way for them to see. Yes, thank you. The back of it then has meeting high school graduation requirements. I think it's a really transparent way for them to see, okay, wait, this really should crosswalk to this course, or at least I should look into it if my school is pushing back. It's also been used a lot recently, I think, by a lot of Central Ohio schools and the school counselors to basically say, nope, look, it's not just me preaching at you, right? And so if I was a college advisor, I certainly would be saying those same things. Like, it's not just me saying you need to take another math because it's good for you, right? I'm saying take another math because, look, Ohio Department of Higher Education says that if you want to go towards this baccalaureate degree, it will really count, right? So anything, and as Candace stated, we're never going to stifle a student's creativity, right? There's always going to be the student, I was one of them, that thought they wanted to be a nursing major and then got into this sociology class and was like, hold up, maybe I should rethink my whole life, right? So we always want that if I would have had that opportunity as a high school student, then I would have known and not taken a seat away from someone in a very selective nursing program. Gives me a little guilt still to this day. So anything that we can use as a resource, I think, is very helpful, and by all means. As Candace said, I think we're always open to feedback, and if there's something hey, this should have an extra page and we need this too, please reach out to us and let us know. But we wanted to definitely bring this to you all this afternoon, just so you know that this is a resource that's out there. And Candace is adding to them constantly. So she mentioned that we have almost 30 at this point, but she's just continuing to develop and put the forms together, and then we work together to check and get posted.
Thanks, Becky. And the other thing I should note is some of these actually include career technical courses that students could take without taking College Credit Plus as career technical students. So some of the engineering tech, you'll see career technical numbers on there. And so that's just something to keep in mind too. If you have students who maybe are not CCP eligible, there's still the ability to earn college credit through career technical and kind of see how that fits into the pathways and can lead them towards an associate degree and even a bachelor's degree.
In really, really cool, innovative places, we're seeing an intersection of all of those things, right? We have some colleges that are doing really excellent jobs, and I think some of you all may even be on the call today that are doing excellent jobs of intersecting CTAGs and AP courses and CCP to advance that student towards that college completion, right? And so that's when I say, oh, look, we're not competing. We're doing a beautiful thing and working together in a sandbox to get that student further along their pathway. to completion.
Well, we wanted to leave a lot of time. We know there's always questions that arise. So what questions do you have for us?
Looks like we did have one in the chat here, asking about AP programs. So just so everyone can hear that in case you're not looking. So that's follow-up question to the first rating on the pathway for CCP. And was there any discussion on possible overlap with the AP programs? Just wondering what guidance high schools have on advising students where AP exams may seep into these pathways too, or other exams courses for that matter, which you kind of just touched on, but I didn't know if you wanted to go into that any further.
It's difficult with the intersection of AP versus CCP, and let me just state very clearly, I love both. So that's a shocking statement, I think, from the director of College Credit Plus. But I'm like, hey, there are some schools that are very heavy AP, and I say congratulations because it's beautiful. And there are some schools that are really heavy in CCP, right? But as I mentioned, I mean, I think the thing that makes it difficult, right, is the intersection of transcripted versus non-transcripted credit, right? Articulated credit. So that makes it a little bit difficult, but it's not impossible. And by all means, I say try to reach out to me afterwards, and I can hook you up with some folks that I think are doing a really good job at some of those institutions across Ohio. If you want some best practices in the field, I'm happy to share. I say the University of Akron, if anybody's on the call, but I work really closely with Kelly Harold. And a lot of times this work kind of intersects because you have one person over multiple things. That would never happen, right, on a college campus. But for the most part, in several of my community colleges especially, we have one person that's working with all the credit, right? And so that actually makes it really hard for them to do their job, but really beautiful for me because they kind of do the behind the scenes work of that, right? And show the intersection of all of that credit. So not to say that it's impossible, but I understand that it would be difficult, especially if I was on the secondary side, but by all means, please reach out and use us as a resource because we'd be happy to show you some examples of how they're doing that.
We have another question. Did you want to read that, Candace?
Sure. So it makes sense to include the course codes because each institution has different course numbers. This is difficult though for students and parents to follow. Have we thought about adding the website for them to look up what TME 001 means, et cetera? And also make two comments here. Yeah, yes, we know Ohio is of course not one of those states who has common course numbering. And so the Ohio articulation numbers are essentially our course numbering, but that means that all institutions can have their own unique numbering systems and they're all being matched to a single set of learning outcomes with this course number that you saw on the pathways. And so, yes, we do have a link currently that links kind of to the general information about for students, for college students about those numbers. But I think, yeah, to your point, it might be helpful to kind of create a cheat sheet of those in a single place that we could then link to. So I appreciate that feedback. I'm definitely going to try to figure out how to kind of simplify and put all that information in one place because our website is a wealth of information, but it's a lot of information perhaps to dig through for students and parents. So it might be helpful to have a single kind of source of information, just listing all those out. So thank you for that.
This is why I love Transfer Talk Tuesday because a lot of organic things come up, and I love this. Candace, we also have a students and families page off of CCP, so we could easily link that and it's very bare right now, so that would look beautiful as a resource. If we wanted to throw it up there, that'd be helpful.
Great idea. What other questions do you have for us? Or what other feedback do you have for us? By all means, tell us how we can make this better for you and for your students and parents.
I was trying to see if I could navigate to the website so it could show you, but give me a second because, I don't want to mess up the technology.
I know one of the feedback we've gotten, one of the reasons we worked on these is that we know there's some confusion between the areas of study that sound similar and maybe are not similar. And so if you have feedback on any other ways we can provide more information around that, like I'm thinking, so engineering, technology, and engineering science both have a separate addendum page on them that kind of describes the difference between those two that the faculty came up with. It's still a little bit technical, but it at least differentiates. These are two different areas. The math requirements are slightly different, that sort of thing. Same thing, computer science, information technology. We're trying to really differentiate between those two areas. Obviously similar, but related, but different. Computer science requires calculus. Information technology is not going to require calculus. So these kinds of areas. So if you have other feedback on that would help. That would be great. We're still kind of fleshing out our health sciences, which I know is going to be popular, but right now we kind of have a very generic pre-health professions. It's aimed at respiratory therapy, for which there is a pathway. But if you took, if a student took any of that set of courses, they're very much pre-health, like medical terminology, anatomy and physiology, your first writing courses. So they could really go in any direction within the health professions, I think, with that set of courses. So we're looking at that and kind of adding some more meta major guidance within there as well. Let's see here. Oh, okay. What additional programs are in progress or coming? So new pathways that are coming there's going to be a revision on engineering technology. So you might see something a little bit more manufacturing focused, potentially a manufacturing pathway. There will also be a cybersecurity pathway coming, and we're looking at agriculture as well. So hopefully then once we get those in place, those would be able to become College Credit Plus pathways as well.
Here in the chat, so I'm not ignoring you guys. I'm just looking to see what.
How might universities and colleges reach equivalency in science labs such as A&P when schools are financially disadvantaged? Becky, do you want to take that one?
I don't know that I know. I mean, anatomy and physiology, right? And schools are financially disadvantaged. Are you saying to offer the course in-house, maybe? Is that, I know I got an interesting question from some folks the other day about a chemistry and how they dispose of supplies. I would say, I mean, if you're working with the college, right? I mean, I would push back on the college because some of those things should be their financial responsibility as well as the district's. If you want to message me separately, I'm happy to help you navigate that. If there's a difficult conversation going back and forth, you let me know if I can be helpful to it, because I'm happy to stand in the middle. I always say this to my school counselors: don't take abuse on behalf of College Credit Plus. Please call me. I get paid for that. So I am happy to step in the situation with you, especially if you have a partnership that's kind of contentious. Happy to help navigate through those things. Trying to see what else came through.
Here, education pathway. Yes, there is an education pathway, and we do need to get that up with College Credit Plus. So the education pathway itself for guaranteed transfer pathways is not a traditional associate degree to bachelor's degree, because for teacher education or teacher licensure programs, things are complicated. I think, as many of you know on this call. So it's about a 30-hour pathway for the guaranteed transfer pathway as well, just because the courses get too specialized too quickly and they're offered only through the bachelor's degree program. So it will kind of look the same as the guaranteed transfer pathway once we get that up there, and it will be a little bit confusing because there's a lot of branching since it's a generic pathway, but it recognizes that there's slight differences versus if you're going, for the younger level and the older level, and we have to make some revisions on it with the grade band changes that happened recently. So it'll be, kind of K through 8 versus, secondary.
And I see also, like, there was a clarification put in the chat too about the supplies that are needed. Let's have a side chat about that one. I do think I can help step in that with you guys because, like I said, there is, that's the beauty of an MOU between a district and an institution is because I can give you some good examples of some really great partnerships out there that others wish they had, right? And those MOUs are also often publicly displayed. So if I'm giving some advice to the field, you can Google like CCP and MOUs at institutions and they'll start popping up. And then you're like, wait, so-and-so does this? Wait, this is a really good, and you can use that to start the conversation. Especially in the space, we have over 90,000 students, right? So as this continues to explode, we are constantly looking at those things, and we ask that the institutions report back to me, at least, the fees that are associated with those type of courses, so we can have a good handle on that too, if that would help inform a discussion with the General Assembly. No promises, but yeah, let's have a side chat about that if you're struggling with supplies for chemistry or supplies for A&P. That's kind of impeding you offering those in-house courses. Let's see how we can help.
Let's see here. I see a suggestion about creating a version that each institution could fill in their own specific courses. So totally possible. We'll definitely look into that. Thank you for the suggestion. And yeah, so that would be great for the higher ed partners, I think, to be able to show what that would look like. And I always say about the guarantee transfer pathways, I really hope that they provide a baseline around the state for like, this is the minimum amount of credit we would expect to be accepted. And that's kind of the same here. Like, this just provides like an idea, a good idea that's based on a faculty, created pathway. But as you're thinking about these different special pathways, like I hope that you have partners who are really good partners and who you can work with to continue to build upon this baseline, and have special considerations with additional courses that are going to transfer and additional admissions or other special wraparound services that would benefit students as well. And I see that we have a question about career data, and we had originally, in our original iteration of our website, had had that career like links to all the occupational data, and it went away when we redid our website a couple years ago. But I think that's definitely something we're interested in adding back in.
Question 2, will the level 1 course list be updated for students to follow the first 15 credit hours? The first 15 is actually listed in the Ohio Revised Code, what does count and what does not count. But internally, I can tell you, you heard me say that I have been tapped to be in a bunch of work groups. I think you'll see us produce some of our own internal, this is what a beautiful 15 and 30 credit hour pathway could look like. We've kind of gotten away from that, right? And we did it in the early days of CCP, and we kind of are just like, yeah, everybody's just kind of throwing up their general education requirements. But I think we've seen the General Assembly move towards specific programs, and they're starting to want to see specific kind of 15 and 30 credit hour pathways. So stay tuned for that one. But yes, I do think you'll see me have a more productive list for you in the future.
Well, and does this fit with kind of the pathways anyways, because they're all Ohio Transfer 36 or TAG courses. We've been very specific and deliberate about the courses that have equivalencies that are being used on these specific, OGTP, CCP pathways. So we are only citing those courses, so they should qualify, right, Becky?
Yeah, for sure. And we have some loopholes too in CCP law, not OGTP law. Let me say that very quickly. So so yet again, that might be one of those one-offs that just call Becky. Does Ohio have assistance for out-of-state college students wanting to transfer? Oh, that's not a me question, I don't think. Does Ohio have assistance for out-of-state college students wanting to transfer into Ohio?
It'll kind of be a case-by-case basis with based on the institution that they're coming into. But of course, if they have questions, they can contact the ODHE hotline, and we can work on making sure they have the right contacts and that sort of thing to assist them. So I got a question about is the dual enrollment, and I have a feeling, is the dual enrollment course that is equivalent 1-to-1 to meet the high school government requirement for students now that the state is requiring economics to also be covered in the government course? So for example, American government at the college level doesn't fulfill the state requirement for graduation since it doesn't include the economic curriculum. Is this accurate or is this a known issue, Becky? I think that's a question for you.
I think it's a known issue, and I think that's where I have to back out of it, right? Because that also is dependent on my colleagues at DEW. So I do know that they know that it's an issue though, right? And we're all kind of collectively working behind the scenes to try to get this figured out. So I think you'll see some upcoming guidance from us. Not that that's helpful to you today, but I don't want to speak over them. So I'll just say stay tuned. But yes, there is something in development for that.
Well, I don't see any more questions, but our contact information was up and I know that this will be published. So please feel free to share it with your colleagues and reach out to us. Like Becky and I are both so happy to hear from all of you and we appreciate feedback and we want to make things better. And so we really, appreciate your voices and we love hearing from you.
All right. Thank you very much, both of you. It's great to have your knowledge and expertise. I'm sure everyone really appreciated hearing about everything you've been doing. So thank you again for being here. For anyone who was forwarded the link to this and is not on our Friends of OATN list and you would like to be, so you can get the direct invitations to events like Transfer Talk Tuesday and other information coming out from our team, you can go ahead and email our transfer email address, which I just put in the chat there, and just request to be added to that list and we will get you on there so that you get this information directly in the future. So once again, thank you, Candace. Thank you, Becky. It was great having you. Thanks everyone else for joining us and we will see you next month.